Oh, hello, and Merry Christmas. So today we're going to have a look at the Q4 Balanced Dataslate and the FAQ. Both of these things came out while I was away on my Christmas kind of tour of the extended family, so we're covering them now. Hope that's okay. First, I want to talk about some weirdness. So we weren't expecting an FAQ. It's supposed to be a kind of cadence where you get an FAQ and then you get a balanced data slate and then you get an FAQ and then you get a balanced data slate. We got two FAQs in a row. A bit weird. The other thing is that we haven't got any Warcom articles. I keep banging on about this. It's quite often they skip the Warcom article for the FAQs, and they're often little technical fiddly changes. But skipping the Warcom article for the balanced data slate seems unwise. I mean, and it's not just the fact that we now know less about what, like, it's not just that people are less likely to know about the balanced data slate now, but it's also the issue. Sorry, I just realised my Christmas lights aren't on. Very important. There we go. It's not just that people are less likely to know about the balanced data slate, but it's also that we don't know their rationale for the balanced data slate. Like, usually they do quite a nice article with a rundown of their data that they've captured and the reasons why they've made certain changes. Shoving a data slate out silently is less useful. Okay, so there's a new layout for the balanced data slate, so I'm not going to do the typical thing of kind of scrolling through it and screen capping it. I've pulled out the individual little sections onto slides, but if you go and look at the full balanced data slate, it is a new layout. They've also got a new layout on all the FAQs. They've combined the FAQs and the designer's notes. So that means they've changed the dates. I'm pretty sure their website must be coded to automatically change the date when a new file is uploaded, rather than it being anybody's choice. Therefore, because they've combined the FAQs and the balanced data slate into a new file, and they've re-uploaded all the files, they're all showing as having been updated. In practical terms, not all of them have been updated, so again, I've picked through them so you don't have to, so you can see where the changes are. Okay? So, let's begin, because we've got like 18 slides of changes. So we're going to start with core rules. There's a lot to unpick here with the core rules. So, actually, I'm going to go for the pen here. Right, my famous green pen. Where are we? Good. So we're starting here. Question. How does a medic operative's abilities that take effect when another friendly operative is incapacitated interact with ranged weapons that make subsequent shooting attacks, i.e. blast and torrent? Resolve all the required shooting attacks, then, if the medic operative is not incapacitated, use that ability at the start of the removed incapacitated operative step. So, I was certainly playing this wrong. I would certainly, I would always make sure, if I had a group of models that was going to be vulnerable to a blast, the medic would tend to always be on a conceal, so they could never target the initial shot at the medic. And I would then say, oh, well, you've initially shot this plasma gun or Euclidean vein or whoever it might be, and now I'm going to get to try and revive them with the medic, even though the blast ability might then go on to kill the medic, because to my money that was how it used to be worded. So from where I was playing it, which you might argue was wrong, but at least now we know, if it was wrong, then there were lots of people playing it wrongly with me, right? So now you have to resolve all the attacks from the blast or the torrent together, and then if the medic is still standing, that you can medic somebody. Now, I'm going to jump down to this... Oh, no. I'm going to jump down to this FAQ here. Question. Many medic operatives have an ability that says, once per turning point, the first time a friendly operative will be incapacitated. What does first time mean? It means the first friendly operative incapacitated fulfills the rules criteria during the turning point. If you do not use it for the first operative, you cannot use it for a different operative later in the turning point. So this is another slight nerf, because it means that you can't hold back your medic you can't hold back your medic. If somebody dies in range of the medic, say you've got your medic, and on one side of the medic you've got a plasma gun, and on the other side of the medic you've got a lasgun guy, and they kill the lasgun guy, that's it. They've used up your medic, so you may as well try and revive that lasgun guy. You cannot save it to protect the plasma gun guy. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, a question in my mind is, how do these two FAQs interact? So let's say that you've got a medic here, and a plasma gun guy here, and a lasgun guy here, and they're targeted by a blast weapon. And let's say he rolls poorly on the medic, so the plasma gunner dies, the lasgunner dies, the medic survives. You then get to the remove incapacitated operative step. In this situation, right, let me know in the comments, in this situation, can the controlling player choose to try and revive the plasma gunner? Or is there some way of determining, like, because this FAQ seems to suggest that the whole blast attack happens simultaneously, so therefore I would argue that in this specific situation, you could choose to revive the plasma gun, right? And for plasma gun, read whatever high value operative your team has. Let me know in the comments if you think that's wrong. So, for example, if it was a blast attack and the initial target was the lasgunner, and it killed the lasgunner, and then it blasted out and killed the medic and the plasma gunner, would that mean that you had to try and revive the lasgunner, as per this FAQ? Or does this kind of muddle the thing sufficiently so that in that, and I appreciate, right, I'm splitting hairs, but nobody else has mentioned this, and I've got to add value to my channel somehow, right? So in this specific situation, I think, I would argue, I would play it as the controller of the medic still gets to choose who to try and revive in the specific situation where a group has been taken out by a blast or a torrent attack, because this FAQ here rules that blast or torrent attacks all happen kind of simultaneously. But of course the medic has to survive. I hope that makes sense to people watching at home. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree and you can say why, let me know in the comments. And if you think that my question is definitively answered somewhere else, let me know as well. Right, now we're going to look at these two here together. So, some shooting attacks occur when an enemy operative moves within a specified distance of a token, e.g. the proximity mine special rule, yada yada yada. In this shooting attack made against the enemy operative as soon as it's within its specified distance, interrupting its move, or at the final location of its move. So its former, it interrupts the specified distance, fine. And then we say, with the proximity special rule in mind, what happens in the unlikely event that an operative performs a charge action, triggers the proximity attack, survives, but can no longer finish within engagement range of an enemy operative, i.e. because the enemy operative was incapacitated by the proximity shooting attack, or moved away as a result of medic ability. What happens? So if there are no enemy operatives you can finish the action within engagement range of, you don't need to, but you can still use your full charge distance. That's nice. Okay, that's good. Yeah? Good. Fine. This bit, I don't understand why this is new. I'm sure this was already in the FAQ. Let's read it anyway. Question. If my operative has a rule that allows me to resolve a hit before the attacker, e.g. the bladed stance ability in the Void Scarred Kurnistrathi. There's loads of these in Kill Team now. That was started off with G-Steel Occult. There's one here. There's one in Euclidean Starstriders have one. The Novitiates have one. There's loads of these where you can resolve something before the attacker. Often it's you can resolve it and have to resolve it as a parry, but it basically lets you have an extra phase before the first phase. Can you still use it when you're the attacker? Yes. Like, I thought everybody understood that, but apparently not. So yes, in some instances you can parry, and then as the attacker, you resolve a hit. Right, that is how it works. Right, there's loads of rules like this now. Come on. You charge, you get to parry away one of your opponent's attacks, and then resolve an attack of your own before your opponent gets to do anything, which can itself be a second parry, which is often the way to go, right? You parry, and then they can do nothing, and then you know how much damage you've got left. So I hope that's clear for everybody. But I could have sworn that was already FAQ'd, and yet there's the star, which is why I've pulled it out. Right. Let's go here to this one. So some rules require operatives to be within a certain distance of an objective marker. If an operative is carrying an objective marker, can other operatives or the operative carrying it be within the required distance of that objective marker for those rules? No, unless the rule mentions carried objective markers. It must be objective markers in the kill zone. This is to create a clean and consistent rule state to avoid other more unusual rules interactions if the answer was yes. I like the way they're saying here, like, oh, we kind of wish that it didn't have to be this way, but there's reasons why it has to be this way. But yeah, carried objective markers basically don't exist. Good. Okay, so here we'll go for... I've not really played this. This is for narrative terrain. So the little robot that comes in Shadow Vaults has a move of 3 circle and it can't change. Fine. And this is from the balanced Dataslate. So this is a new core rule. The movement characteristic can't be modified to less than 2 circle, even if you're injured. This is a big buff for Necron teams, both bespoke. The bespoke Necron team in particular, Heretic Circle. I think also the Compendium Necron team. But general rule, you can never have less than 2 circle move. Ever, ever, ever. Great. Good. Great. Right, let's get on to the specifics. Pathfinder, why is the pen still here? Nobody asked for you. Let's fix... There we go. So Pathfinder's really simple. 1 less operative. A simple nerf, and I think it'll be really effective. Some people are already whining that it's not enough. I'm scared of Pathfinders. They have marker lights. Let's just remember AdMac, who went from being the weakest team to a really dominant team, and an operative is a big deal. Like, I know that I'm not an expert on the game. But at the same time, can we just see how it goes for Pathies with 1 less operative? Like, 1 less operative is a big deal. Don't just be like, oh, yeah, it's just 1 less operative. Oh, I've still got all this other stuff. Yeah, they have got a lot of stuff, but 1 less operative is a big deal. So I think that's a good change. We can see for a quarter how that goes, and then go back and then change more if that's what they want to do. Pathfinders are so hard, isn't it? Because Pathfinders... their dominance is so dependent on the terrain that your table is playing on, and that is the variable that changes the most among local metas. So I understand why some people are upset. If you're regularly playing on tables where marker lights are a big deal, then that will colour your view. For my money, the biggest problem with Pathfinders is that there were lots of them, and they're just their basic... for me, it was never even about the special rules. Their gun is really good. Like, their basic gun is really good, and so they have 1 less basic gun now, and so that's good. I mean, but that's admittedly simplistic, but that's my way of looking at it. So we'll see. Like, obviously, if they still become really dominant, there's still a problem. Games Workshop can go back and nerf them again, right? Phobos. So some people have missed this. They've massively buffed Deadly Shots. So Deadly Shots was the new strategic ploy they added in the previous balanced Dataslate that people were pretty dismissive of, and I agree. At the time it was pretty weak, but now I think it looks pretty good. So it's 1 CP, and it gives all your bolters the P1 critical hit rule. So there's no longer any kind of requirement to stand still, which is great. So what this means is, because of your strategize on your leader, while your leader is alive, you get 2 CP every turn. So if you want to have Deadly Shots and Bolter Discipline every single turn, I'm not saying that's the best way to play the game, but it's not bad, is it? Right? Considering you can take a lot of bolters that have lethal 5-up. So suddenly, that doesn't seem so bad, right? And then you've still got your 2... extra CP at the start to do other things with, boost your movement, that kind of stuff. I think that's a pretty good change. Like, Phobos are looking really interesting to me now. They've buffed a lot of teams that look pretty interesting to me. I've got a fully painted Phobos roster, so it really does look interesting now with Deadly Shots. The Reaver's Terror action is an auto AP now, which is great because you Having played a little bit with Phobos, like the Reavers were really good, but you never got around to using their terror action because they had a lot of other stuff to do. So now it's free, so now it will get used. So now you've got an extra bit of flavorful stuff that you may actually get onto using. So sorry. Now, Incursors, I'm a bit leery about this, to be honest. This seems almost too good. So the Incursors multi-spectrum array changed the first bullet point to read, the intended target cannot be obscured. So you can never claim obscuring from Incursors fire. Now, if you're taking all the specialists, I think your Incursors are like the Mine Layer and the Sniper. Now, having this on the Sniper is fantastic, brilliant, wonderful, amazing. My question is, and nobody else has asked this question, and if I was more afraid of, like, an Emperor's New Clothes style, like, well, I best just say what everyone else is saying situation, I wouldn't ask it, but I'm going to say it, even if other people think it's stupid. To me, this now at least raises a question over, do you want to flex into taking all Incursors? Because if you go to if you look at the board, and if you're at Warhammer World, and you're on like a Warhammer World Chalnath board, and it's heavy terrain as far as the eye can see, I mean, yes. You're missing out on your comms and your medic and on all this stuff, but there's a certain draw, isn't there, to going all Incursors and going, well, you can't be obscured from me, and I've got Bolted Disco and Deadly Shots. Like, I don't know. I'm not a top player. That just seems really interesting to me. And I wonder if there's something there. People are dismissing it again because most of the... It's not as if you can flex your specialists to Infiltrator or Incursor. And the Infiltrators with the 5-up... It is the Infiltrators that have the 5-up... critting on 5-ups, right? So that goes better with the Deadly Shots. Like, I'm not saying it's definitely a thing, but... It's just a little tickle of an idea of a question mark there, surely. Because that Incursor, the same people who are screaming about Marker Lights, like, that's pretty good, isn't it? On a team with Bolter Discipline and team-wide AP1, like, Guerrilla Warfare strategize. They've changed the distance requirement to blue instead of red. So this is Guerrilla Warfare is the one that allows you to spend a CP to change your order, and strategize is your leader's ability to create a command point. This is really, to my money, it's a little nudge in the direction of a Reaver leader, right? And certainly the whole thing is really handy into the dark. Like, I would assume for Phobos, the Into the Dark team, you just go all Reavers. Because you may as well. And at that point, the fact that you can mess around with stuff and you can get much closer to your opponents is really good. So yeah, that's a little buff for them in the dark as well, I would say. Phobos looking really interesting. People still not saying it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Like, this is the third round of quite significant buffs for the Phobos. And still, there's the people going, it's not enough, 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 it's not enough. There will come a point, right, where if they keep buffing Phobos, I think people will not be satisfied until they're fundamentally better than Intercession. Like, they're already, unfortunately for me, I think getting sort of, they're less resilient than Intercession, but they're almost now putting out the same firepower. I mean, granted, they have to pay the CP for it, but then they do get more CP than Intercession. So, Phobos worth a look. Like, if I was looking for an elite team at the moment, I would probably have a go at Phobos, to be fair. I've got them painted and they've been... Now, my only downside with them, really, actually, is because they had so many buffs and different things, is you do need a lot of bits of paper and a lot of asterisks and a lot of... remembering where stuff is to play Phobos properly now, unfortunately, because they've got buffs here, they've got buffs in their FAQ, which is weird. But our Phobos are looking interesting now, I think so. Let me know why I'm wrong in the comments. Like, I'm aware I'm shooting against the prevailing wisdom with this one, but I think they look really cool. Hunter Clade. So, let's be really clear about this. Operative selection. So this replaces the operative selection changes in the previous balanced data slate. Okay, so your kill team cannot include more Sicarian operatives than it does Ranger and Vanguard operatives combined, but it can include the same. Your kill team includes no more than 4 Sicarian operatives. It can include 1 additional ranger or vanguard for 11 in total. So you lost the thing about the third gunner. So basically now you're choosing between a 4 Sicari and 6 Skitarii build or a 5 Sicari and 5 Skitarii build. Now a lot of people have said this is too small of a nerf because you can still take 5 Sicarans and that was the problem and why they allow 5 Sicarans and this, that and the other. But like the problem I have here is Hunter Clade were a joke. Like, they were, for a while, the worst bespoke team. Nobody played Hunter Clade, right? I know that the fellow from Command Point was always saying, oh, actually, they're still actually pretty good. But he was the lone voice in the wilderness on this. Everybody else was treating Hunter Clade like the butt of a joke, right? And they buffed them, and they overbuffed them, and they made them overpowered. Like, I get it. They didn't give them that much, right? They gave them the extra operative. So now they've kind of half taken away the extra operatives. I think this is exactly what they needed to do. Excuse me. This is exactly what they needed to do. They have tried to row back almost exactly halfway on the previous buff. Like, well, you can keep the changes to the Doctriner, but you can lose the extra gunner. And you can have an extra guy, but only if you don't take 5 Sicarians, but you can still take 5 Sicarians, but if you do, you can't have the extra guy. Like, they have desperately tried to split the difference here between the unbuffed state of Hunter Clade and the buffed state of Hunter Clade, right? So I think this is exactly the right incremental nerf they should have done. Obviously, Hunter Clade may still be really dominant, right? If that happens, I'd be interested to see it. Okay, but I actually think Bravo Games Workshop, they've done the right thing here. They've reacted rather than overreact. Okay? They've reacted rather than overreact. So, good. We've also got some stuff in the FAQ. So, the calculated eradication tactical objective. When counting wounds lost to this TAC-op, if an operative is reduced to 0 wounds, ignore the excess wounds lost. For example, if 5 damage is inflicted on a target with 2 wounds remaining, count it as 2 wounds lost. I would always have assumed it was played this way. And then it goes on to say, this differs from the wording of the reputation to maintain TAC-op in Euclidean Starstriders, where excessive damage furthers a rogue trader's reputation. Now, that's a stealth buff to Euclidean Starstriders inside the FAQ for Hunter Clade. I'm not sure it's enough to still pick that TAC-op in that Euclidean Starstriders TAC-op, but that's a weird way. Like, unless more people than I assume were getting this wrong, because I would have assumed for both of these TAC-ops that you didn't get the wounds from overkill. So, I mean, as someone that's currently maining Euclidean Starstriders, I'm quite pleased. Although, honestly, Clade, like, I wasn't taking this one, reputation to maintain, much less so now that we're just picking, right? Clade players, were you taking calculated eradication? Like, I think I've talked too much for something that's irrelevant to most people. Void Dancer Troop. Domino Field Strategic Ploy, 1 plus CP. It costs 1 additional command point for each previous time you use it during the battle, e.g. 1 CP the first time you would use it, 2 CP the second time you would use it, and so on. I did ask the question in my Discord, do Troop really need another nerf? Because they've been nerfed, and they seem to have fallen down the table. People aren't winning events with them, people aren't dominating events with them. And the answer I got back, largely from Major Tom, but was a resounding yeah. My sense is that they are still dominating kind of semi-casual play, like club level play. People are still finding them really difficult, so fine. You know, if people think this was needed, it's neither here nor there. I think it's a relatively minor tweak. Like, I don't think it's going to do too much to them, especially in the world where now everyone has an extra CP out the gate anyway. It just means that Void Dancers are... Because you're probably not using this Domino Field in turn 8.3 or turn 8.4 anyway, right? So it just means that your Void Dancer Troop are spending 1 extra CP in the game in turn 8.2 to do their Domino Field, but they're getting an extra CP anyway, and everyone's getting an extra CP, so it is still an effective nerf, but it's very marginal. Fine, right? Fine. Galapox. The Techno Curse ability Distance requirement is reduced to circle instead of square, and square for glitchling operatives instead of pentagon. Now, I've not played as or against Galapox in this edition of the game. I have not got much of a feeling for how significant the techno curse change is. I hear from the competitive voices in the community that this techno curse thing is a big deal. I am not so sure myself. Although I can see why having really big auras like that would, if you're playing a lot into the dark, could be quite oppressive, right? So probably a good change. Revoltingly resilient for the Glitchling and the Galapox mutants, not the whole team, so not the big guys, but for the Glitchling and the Galapox mutants, their Feel No Pain type save has gone down from a 5 up to a 6 up, which is, even to me that hasn't got that much experience with the team, that's obviously a significant change. Doesn't affect the big lads, but obviously that's going to make it easier to chew through the small stuff. I can imagine it being frustrating when a glitchling manages to survive a round of shooting that really ought to put it down. So hopefully that's going to happen a little bit less often now, which is great. A lot of people don't like Feel No Pain type saves in Kill Team, because Death Guard, for example, are still kind of regularly doing reasonably well in events, and people go, well, it's more luck than judgment. They're a very swingy team, blah, blah, blah. I think for me, it's such an evocative mechanic of Nurgle that it almost seems weird if you're trying to represent something Nurgly and you don't give it a Feel No Pain type save, then, it doesn't feel Nurgly anymore, right? But yeah, taking it down from a 5 to a 6 for the little guys is fine, isn't it? The Euclidean Star Striders, I'm pretty pleased here. So we're going to start with the FAQ change, just because I'm really pleased. I mentioned this in my Warhammer World review. This was a ruling they gave out at Warhammer World. They're saying, look, if you do a shoot action with a support asset and the line of sight is being drawn from a vantage point, you gain the effect of the vantage point. They said yes, and I said that in the video. And then someone got on a comment and said, oh well, remember the Novitiates Warhammer World ruling vis-a-vis gaining faith points, and that didn't pan out to be a real thing. So really glad this has been nailed on in the FAQ really quickly. So you do indeed gain the benefit of vantage point for calling in your privateer support assets. So that's really, really good. Really positive. Really good to see. It is clearly how it should have played, but it also was very clearly not how it was worded. So really, really pleased to see that change. Buffs. 3 buffs, all of them pretty significant. We're going to go in reverse order. So the Voidsman Rotor Cannon has gained Relentless. That's reroll misses. Brilliant, good. I was really partisan for the Rotor Cannon to get a buff because it felt really pointless before and ineffectual, and now it gives you another meaningful kind of piece, another meaningful threat, which is really great, good. Love to see it. The Electromeister's Voltagast Field / Voltagast Charge actions are now free. This is really, really good because it just opens up so much play for the Electromaster. So now you can potentially move, dash, do a free mission action, and then Voltagast Field on the objective that you find yourself on. Or you could move, potentially interact with an objective, but then charge and shoot after having moved, so that you charge with your pistol. So that just puts a lot more freedom into the Electromeister. You might even decide to take his tactical ploy, where he has to go and do a mission at you. If you're playing a version of the game, a version of the core mission where you don't have to do an action on the objectives, you might not mind doing that now. I still don't think you probably would. But the option is a bit. And then again, there was one game in the Warhammer World Tournament where I did take the Electromeister's kind of specific little tac op. Although in the Brave New World, where we're going to be just picking off 3 tac ops, I don't think that'll be as likely to be something that I would pick. But there you go. And then finally, the privateer support assets improve the BS of all the support assets by 1. So they'll go from a 4 up to a 3 up. So originally I was really, really in favour of this change. You guys know that my main practice partner is Zimbad, and Zimbad mainly plays Intercession. And I kind of feel like in a world where other people have plasma guns, it's fair enough that if he leaves someone in a shootable place, I have a gun on my team that can one-hit a Marine, and previously it was very swingy as to whether it would one-hit that Marine or not. Now it is much less swingy, so you're much more likely to reduce a Marine to a pair of smoking boots, which is not unreasonable. It's not an unreasonable thing to be able to do twice in a game. In a world where other people have plasma guns that they can shoot potentially 4 times in a game. I have this, I can shoot it twice, but I can draw line of sight from more operatives, so it's harder to get rid of, hard to avoid. I think that's fair and balanced. What other people have drawn my attention to, though, that is perhaps a bit good, is actually the other, the ones that because I play against elite teams so much, the support assets that I'd kind of written off, the two with blast, like the ability to actually project infinite range blast up the board is quite uncommon. So now, infinite range, quite accurate, quite deadly blast. If you can be killing 2 or even 3, like Vanguard, Novitiates, whatever it might be, especially on Is the Dark, where these support assets work, it seems like that might be quite strong. So, I don't know. Maybe this will get rolled back, or I think what I'd like to see, let me know if you agree with this, is maybe, and I think this makes perfect sense in terms of the fluff as well. Improve the BS for the Architect Beam, but maybe not for the 2 blast weapons. I don't know. But maybe it's not that, like, I've not tried it yet. And certainly if I do try it, it'll be against Zimbad for at least the first couple of games, and then his elite guys anyway. So it's going to be a little while before I get to try this against a team of soft, squidgy people that really care about the blast weapons. It's not a change anybody asked for. The other 2 changes I think are brilliant. This change is, I can't complain. Maybe slightly. I think some people are over-egging the pudding with saying how good it is and how broken it is, but it would be wrong of me not to acknowledge that it is perhaps a little good. But I think there's a couple of things in here that are a little good. But I think perhaps a little good. Speaking of a little good, let's go to the Fast Stalker kin band. So they've got that extra operative. Fine, good. So you can take an extra dog or basic crew, essentially. Then they've buffed the BS of all of the shooting specialists, which is great. It makes a lot of sense. So they've improved the BS characteristic by 1 for the bow guy, the BS characteristic by 1 for the pistol guy, and the BS characteristic by 1 for the sniper. Takes the sniper from a 3 up to a 2 up, and the bow and the pistol from a 4 up to a 3 up. Fine, good, no-brainer needed to happen. And then we've got even more buffs here. The Cutthroat's strategic ploy gets you a maximum of 5 attacks instead of 4, which is good. Meat's gone down to 1 EP, so you potentially go for 10 meat, which I think is quite good. Trophy's gone down to 3 from 4, so you go 3 trophies and a meat as well, which I think is pretty good. And the rogue ability, like each time shooting is activated against the operative, the no cover special rule has no effect for that shooting attack. A little bit niche, but still a good buff. I do fear that it's a lot of bullet points, right? Kroot may have been overbuffed. I appreciate they were in a very weak place to begin with. I really kind of want to play into bespoke Kroot now, just to see what I think about them. There is a little risk there that they've been overbuffed, perhaps. Onto the Heretic Circle. So buffs. Sorely needed buffs for the Necrons. Reanimation protocols resolved before the living metal ability. Great. Commence reanimation tactical ploy is now 0 CP. Great. Phase Oculars, which is the equipment that you could buy for the Death Mark, and the action is now 0 CP, 0 AP. Fine, good, yes. Makes the Death Mark a little bit better. The 2 changes I'm less sort of ecstatic about. The Cryptek has gained 2 wounds, fine. Its BS has gone up by 1. Now, for me, this breaks something quite nice about the team. So, the Heretic Circle had a thing where if you shot the Cryptek weapons through the Apprentech and the Apprentech weapons through the Cryptek, you got a bonus and you got to reroll ones. There was certainly some sort of bonus to hit, so you were incentivized to do it. The Cryptek weapon was better coming out the Apprentech, and the Apprentech weapon was better coming out the crypt deck. Now that the crypt deck has a BS of 3+, and the apprentice still has a BS of 4+, that is not the case. So you're no longer incentivized to use their cool mechanic. Does it make the team better? Yes. Does it make more sense in the lore for the crypt deck to be powerful? Yes. Honestly, I don't want to roll back the buff. What I would like to do is to buff the apprentice BS as well. Give the little apprentice a BS of 3+, because he should have a brain on him. He's been an apprentice for potentially a long time, right? He should be a better shot than a Billy basic Necron warrior. Surely. Surely. Justice for apprentice. Talking of apprentice, the FAQ does give him a little boon, so it just clarifies that he can still use one of his Cryptek operatives' Cryptek actions once the Cryptek operative has been killed, which is fine. Good. And another clarification about pseudo-shooting attacks getting vantage points. So, when using the Magnification Conduit ability, if you are using the other friendly operative as the active operative in line of sight, and it's on a vantage point, does the shooting attack gain the benefit of that vantage point? Yes, it does, which is great. Oh, and the Cryptek's command action gets 0 AP, which means that this is the one where you can effectively hand out an extra AP from either your Cryptek or from your Despotek. That's pretty good as well. I think Heretic are in a much better place. Are they better enough? Because they were in a very dark place before. I mean, I want to paint my Necrons now. I've gone from being totally like, oh god, what's the point of these? So yeah, I want to paint them. I want to do my Legionary Challenge. I want to do my Into the Dark Terrain, and then I want to do my Necrons. So it's enough to get me want to paint them. Less inspired to try them than I am to keep going with the Star Striders. Less inspired to try them than I am to try pivoting to Phobos. But they are at least on my radar of things that I would like to paint and play with one day now. And now we're on to just FAQ changes, so I'll speed up a little bit. For the Navy breaches, when an operative makes multiple shooting attacks from one shoot action, e.g. Blast, does the Blitz tactical ploy apply to all the shooting attacks from the action or just the first one? All of them, which is, I mean, Blitz was one of the keystones, or is one of the keystones of playing well as breaches. So this is a buff. If breacher players weren't already playing it this way, this is a buff. It's weird to me that breaches have got an effective buff, I guess, in the FAQ and not been touched at all in the balanced Dataslate, and they are commonly regarded as being a top shelf team. They just won the last Warhammer World Tournament. Now, granted, they were being played by Carlos, world number 4, who probably could have won with Kroot, I don't know, but nevertheless, I think breaches are reasonably well regarded, and it's interesting that they didn't take any nerfs. Could be that there's not been enough games played with breaches. They are comparatively new, but we don't know because they didn't do that article alongside the balanced Dataslate to tell us what their rationale was, which is sad. If anyone at Games Workshop or with links to Games Workshop is watching this video, bring back the cool article where you tell us about your data analyses, please. Games Workshop, pass that along. When a Navis Geist Skull operative is incapacitated as a result of the Navis Avoid Jammers Detonate special rule, do the Navis Geist Skull's remaining wounds count as being lost, in particular of attack ops and mission objectives that require this? Yes, fine. When the Scully blows up, he gives away his wounds for the purpose of attack ops. In the same vein with Commandos, when Squeaky blows up, he gives away his wounds for the purposes of attack ops. That's the only change to Commandos. I know that Goblin in the Discord really thinks Commandos need a buff. This is not my experience with Commandos. Like, I played them twice at the last event, and they beat me once. They seem pretty, not overpowered, but they seem pretty well balanced to me. So I don't think they needed a big uplift, but there you go. Legionary, oh, this is like word salad. It's actually reasonably simple, but let's go for it. So, some rules allow you to resolve a hit before the attacker, e.g. the Bladed Stance ability in the Void Scarred Kernathi. Why do they always pick that one when there are loads of examples of such rules? But there you go. How do these interact with the Shrive Talon's Vicious Reflexes ability? So, the Shrive Talon goes first, even when he's charged. I'll read the answer. Vicious Reflexes changes the order of dice resolution, but rules such as Bladed Stance happen before the order of dice resolution. As a result, Bladed Stance would allow the Void Scarred Kernathi to parry first, and then normal dice resolution would begin, starting with the Shrive Talon operative. So basically, you can still, if you have one of these abilities that lets you resolve a parry before the combat begins, you can still do that. Even if you charged a Shrive Talon, the Shrive Talon doesn't get to start his combat until you've resolved your pre-combat parry, right? Which is the way I would have played it. Novitiate's got a nerf, and I'm so pleased about it, because this is something that I don't want to offend people that were doing this. Like, it is what the rules said, but it was so beardy. And I know that we've kind of, the kill team community is really not that interested in words like beardy and cheesy. There's just, do what you want within the rules. It's a competitive game and all the rest of it. But this was absolute camembert, So for people not familiar, the exactor, you could whip the penitent, and if you whipped the penitent, you added circle to its movement characteristic, which was fine. And then what people were doing was they would activate the penitent, do something or pass, whatever. Then they'd activate the exactor and whip the penitent, and then TP2, they would whip the penitent again, and then they would argue that has now got 5 circle movement and a charge of 6 circle. I'm so glad that it's gone. I refused, even when I was making novitiates, I refused to do this particular combo because it always struck me as being so painfully, obviously not what the designers intended for you to do. So I'm really just glad it's gone. For the avoidance of doubt, you can still get a 5 circle charge, right? This rule does not take that away. It means that you can modify your movement from 3 to 4 by whipping, and then charging still gives you the extra circle of move. So you do still get a 5 circle charge. What you've lost is the 5 circle normal move or the 6 circle charge. And I'm pleased that it's gone, because when I played novitiates, I felt like I was playing with one hand behind my back compared to the more cutthroat players who were prepared to use this silliness. So I'm pleased the silliness is gone. Good job, Games Workshop. Vet Guard, really simple. It's just another thing about pseudo shooting attacks benefiting from vantage point. So if you're up on the vantage point, you use your tactical assets. You gain vantage. It's great. And something I'm too stupid to understand. When starting a Spec Ops campaign, can I add 4 Trooper Veteran Operatives ancillary support to my Dataslate? Yes. So presumably that's so that your troopers can gain experience points in narrative play. Perhaps. Okay, fine. Wormblade. If a Wormblade operative performs a guard action in an activation in which its order was changed from conceal to engage, does it gain the benefit of cult ambush rerolls in the subsequent guard attack? So, for those who don't know, Wormblade have a special rule where if you change your order from conceal to engage, your shooting is better, and this is just saying that doesn't carry over to guard attacks. A sensible clarification, because you could have easily read that either way. And then finally, Kasarkin. All they got, add the following to the relevant part of the first sentence. Place your Meltamine token in a location visible to and within black of the operative and ward and circle from enemy operative. It's just the old you can't phase explosives through walls change that they've been rolling out in the FAQs. So otherwise Kasarkin not touched. Surprising, I think Kasarkin is perhaps the team about which there's been the most rending of garments online about how underpowered they are. Oh, they're not as good as Compendium Scions, and why have they done this to us, and what is this elite mechanic, and why do I have BS4, and I guess the developers just don't think we understand Kasarkin properly yet, so they're waiting. What will happen is now nobody will play them, and then they'll be forced to buff them because nobody's playing them. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't played as or into Kasarkin, so I don't have that much of a strong feeling about the issue. But to say there's been a lot of rending of garments online about Kasarkin, and then they get nothing, there is a question mark there, which is basically what I said on the slide. So do let me know if you have any shocks or surprises about the balanced data slate or indeed the FAQ. The biggest one for me is there's lack of updates for Kasarkin. Perhaps the lack of nerfs for Navy should be there as well. Did I miss anything? Are there any changes that I did not flag up? Please do flag them up down below. Please also, if you got anything cool for Christmas, we have the post-Christmas lull now, so Let us know if you've got anything interesting for Christmas. And consider joining the Discord for a bit of community, subscribing to the channel, leaving a comment, liking the video. And if you find yourself with a little bit of spare cash money, consider pressing the join channel button, the grey button down there at the bottom. If you click that button, you'll even see an extra special little video that will go through all the things you get for your membership as well. And I'd really appreciate that. Got my letter from Google AdSense today, so I can actually get the money that I'm earning from my adverts, which is amazing. All right, guys, I hope you had a great Christmas, and I shall see you again tomorrow. Cheerio for now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye. Bye.